Hello, and good morning again, everybody. My name is Chung Liang, and it's an honor to be here speaking for today's sermon. I'm sorry we couldn't be together, but it's so great to see so many of you, all these familiar faces in the little boxes on the screen. Before we begin, full disclosure, I am by no means an expert on philosophy. I'm not a certified teacher or a master of spirituality. There are things I have done and said that I have not been proud of. I get angry, I've yelled, maybe broke a few things in my time, and I don't always get along with family. For some of us, that might have just been a few days ago. But I do try to be a kinder person, a loving father, a compromising co-parent, and a compassionate human being. I am a person who may differ in opinion, who hasn't attained universal truth in belief or perfection in character. Like you, I am searching for truth and goodness while doing the best I can with what I know. In short, I am a Unitarian Universalist. And so I speak to you today based on my experience as a toy designer and as an artist. And I'd like to start off with a short story. You've probably heard this one here before, just like I have, and it illustrates a point about how we can experience the world in different ways. There once was a group of blind men who heard that a strange animal called an elephant had been brought to the town. None of them had ever heard of this creature before, and out of curiosity, they said, "We must go and find out what kind of animal this is." So the townspeople guided them to the elephant, and being blind, they could only use their hands to examine the foreign creature. The first person, whose hand landed on the round, flexible trunk, said, "This animal is long like a snake." The second man, whose hand reached its flappy ears, said, "This animal is flat and thin, like a paper fan." Another, whose hand was upon its thick leg, said, "This elephant is a pillar, like a tree trunk." A blind man who placed his hand upon its side said, "An elephant is a wide, thick wall." Another who felt its tail described it as a hairy rope, and the last felt its tusks, stating the elephant was hard and smooth like a spear. Each of the men had correctly described the elephant, even though their answers were vastly different. So in the end, who was right? There are so many lessons to be drawn from this story, such as the paradox of being both right and wrong at the same time, how our experiences can affect our view of the truth, and that you should never ask blind men to figure out what an elephant is. But my big takeaway from this anecdote comes from another vantage point. It's the point of the bystander, the person who is witnessing this event, us. We are hearing this, and we can take all their descriptions and put it together to form an image of an elephant. We're able to make many answers into one answer. If I were backpacking through India and happened across this scene, I would have grabbed a clump of clay, sculpted a model of an elephant, and grouped all the men together and said, "Here, hold this. You feel how there's a trunk, ears, tusks, legs, body, and a tail? This is an elephant." And they would have been like, right, I get it now. And then they would all head back home nodding their heads. I love the story in this context because it describes the most important work I do in my profession. I problem solve by listening to everybody's point of view, and I show them an answer with my art. Now, most of you know that I am a toy designer. It's the majority of the work I focus on, but I am also versed in a spectrum of product design categories, ranging from restaurant equipment, home and garden goods, hunting gear, even military and museum exhibit spaces. I wouldn't say I have any extensive experience in any of these things, but I've been brought into these projects because of my ability to visualize people's thoughts and ideas through sketches and drawings. No matter who the client is, I always approach the design problem in the same way. I listen to the way each individual in the group describes the common problems they are facing or the goals they would like to achieve. Essentially, I listen to the way they describe their elephant. Through their experience and understanding, I put together a design solution. I literally draw from their experience. And in their story, I am the bystander. Today, I'd like to share with you some examples where I've helped people out with their projects in this way, as an outsider, without any expertise in the field. Once I had a client in the hunting and gaming industry. They made hunting blinds, which are like these camouflaged tiny little houses. They have a small window so they can look out and they can shoot their guns from. Hunters would sit in there all day to stay out of sight and to keep them protected from the elements. The business was a little stagnant. They wanted to increase their sales by having me design amenities to the blinds to make them more comfortable. Coincidentally, I was also working with another client, a fast food restaurant, Chick-fil-A, you may have heard them, on a separate problem. Their drive-through business was skyrocketing because of their growing popularity and because of COVID. To meet the high demand, they started having employees preemptively greet cars to field orders, deliver food, and to expedite the long lines. If you've ever been to Portillo's, you know how this works. Well, on nice days, this was a fine solution, but on days where there was inclement weather, rain, snow, extreme heat, or cold, the employees were really suffering. So they wanted to come up with a solution. Though each client described their problems in a completely different way, I began to see the solution to both could just be the same answer. It was an unexpected marriage, but in the end, I had shown both clients a common solution. It was a modified design of a hunting blind turned into a remote restaurant drive-through station. Instead of camouflage, it was painted bright red and had a menu board. The shooting window was now a greeting window, and it had air conditioning for summer, heat for winter, had storage for rain gear, electronic ordering equipment, and lights. It was a serendipitous collaboration between the two most unlikely companies. And they started just using these just this year. So if you're ever going to a Chick-fil-A, you just may see one of these outside. The next example I'd like to tell you about happened just recently also this year. I reconnected with an old friend I used to work with in the toy industry, who now works at a large exhibit design firm that curates experiential spaces for cruise ships or traveling exhibits. They work on these larger than life installations with hands-on activities for kids, rooms full of decorations and art and sculptures. And they do it for all these well-known licenses. This is the kind of stuff you might see, for example, in the Museum of Science and Industry. And they had completed a Dr. Seuss exhibit, a Halloween pirate ship for Carnival Cruises, but now they were tasked with a new project, Charlie Brown and the Whole Peanuts Gang by Charles Schulz. The one thing with large projects like this is that there are many, many voices involved with the creative process to realize the full vision of the brand, and they don't always align. And my friend was right in the middle of this when he decided to ask me to come on board to help with the problem. The main issue was this: Snoopy, the real star of the show. Charlie Brown may be the main character, but we all know who everybody loves most. It's Snoopy. So the exhibit had a room for each character: Charlie Brown, Lucy, Linus, Peppermint Patty, etc. And they were fairly easy to work around because, being people, you could create a house-sized room with stuff that related to them. But Snoopy, oh Snoopy, he's a dog. And so he has a little tiny red dog house. But at the same time, he's also the most interesting dog ever. He flies World War I biplanes against the Red Baron, drinks root beer in seedy French bars, he dances, he drives, he reads, he can type 60 words a minute on a vintage typewriter. He's the great pumpkin, Joe Cool. Most of all, he's a loyal friend. So his room needed to be the highlight of this exhibit. But since it was small, it could only really be one thing. So the problem was each creative on the team had a very specific vision of what that room should be. One person thought it should be an expansive library. Another saw it as a French cafe serving root beer. There were ideas for a pool hall, a music room filled with instruments, a biplane hangar, a sports and trophy room, maybe just a lounge room with a dog bed and a vintage TV. Well, after freaking out for a little bit, I started sketching different room variations to meet their needs. I loved all these ideas. I thought all of them really could fit for Snoopy, and it was just such a pity to leave them all out and just choose one. As I was rough sketching some more, which is like me thinking a lot on paper, I stepped back and I saw all the room drawings next to each other and said, well, heck, that's a clean version. What if it's all of those ideas just put together as one room? And I realized there was a way to create this incredible space, but maintain the illusion that we were going into a little tiny doghouse. And I think that's really where it turned. So it did involve modifying their entire entrance to the exhibit. And so what I proposed in the end was that they paint all the exterior walls as if it was the sky. I added trees and hills, and then I suggested making astroturf on the ground to simulate grass. And then Snoopy's doghouse would be the entranceway to the room. So from the outside, it looked like a small red doghouse in a field. But when you crawled through the opening, you would find yourself immersed in an expansive space filled with everything that Snoopy embodied. In this way, I was able to help satisfy each person's vision while adding a little touch of magic to the solution that really worked well in the end. The last example I have today comes from the water drainage industry. I know, not very glamorous, but let me tell you, the people who work in this field are quite passionate about water flow, and it's a fiercely competitive industry. Just to clarify, home water drainage system is, it helps divert rainwater away from your house so you don't get little flooded areas on your property. Yeah, not that, not ground shattering excitement, but usually it involves a series of pipes in the ground that carries water from one location to the other. So the company I was working with was holding a design workshop to come up with new product ideas. They had engineers, designers, marketers, salespeople, and they even invited working professionals in the field to give their insight and testimonials. During the event, the working professionals mentioned that one of the most common issues they come up against is changing the angle of a straight pipe to get around obstacles. The company only makes two types of angled connectors, the 90-degree bend and the 45-degree elbow. Well, that works just great for indoor plumbing, but when you're working outside, Mother Nature tends to be a little more difficult. You see, these pipes sometimes need to go in all sorts of angles to get around trees, rocks, other pipes, structures in your home. Sometimes they need to angle left, right, up, down, depending on the situation. So many times the two angles just didn't work. Many current solutions relied on a series of multiple bends just to get the job done. It was inefficient and expensive, but from the company's viewpoint, it just wasn't economical to make more than two types of bends. You would have to increase store space to carry inventory, increase manufacturing costs to make these. You could possibly confuse the consumer with too many options. As I listened to the two conflicting viewpoints, I started imagining how a single solution could meet both their needs. In this case, I took a straight pipe that they had, similar to this paper towel roll, and I cut it on a 45-degree angle. I showed them if they could add a hinge where the cut was, you could technically twist the pipe into any angle that you wanted. And that way, you would only need this one pipe to solve every angle on the field, and the company would only have to make one pipe. Well, I've never seen people happier in my life about water drainage that day. So you've heard me use this context of the bystander point of view to describe how it relates to my work as an artist and as a designer. Drawing from the experience of others to come up with new solutions is at the heart of the work that I do for others. I love showing people what elephants look like. When I joined this church in 2014, I didn't know what I was looking at. I wasn't spiritual or connected with any religion or cause, but over the years being here at UUSG, I've been inspired by so many of my fellow Unitarians here through their talents, generosity, and love. You've showed me the many parts of a spiritual life that could be rewarding in all different ways. I see the passion from Kevin and Lisa for the Northern Illinois Food Bank, and so I volunteered. I see Jean Pierce and Becky Ruby's commitment to teaching our young people, and so I joined LRE. Tracy Rosecrans and Tracy McFadden's love of music gave me the courage to perform on stage at the church. Tom Lichtenheld's art and wisdom drives me to become a better artist. The Montgomery's family extensive involvement in the church led me to join the OWL program. And the Reverend Lindsay Bates and Reverend Scott Hall's leadership, they showed me the power of the spoken word. In short, it is you who have shown me the elephant. Thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you with all my heart. It's been an incredible journey, and I know I wouldn't be the same person I am today if it wasn't for this church. For the people who have inspired me, for the friendships and the love and the laughter, I look forward to continuing being a part of this home as we keep looking for that elephant together. Blessed be, and amen. No matter how weak or how frightened we may feel, we each have gifts that can make a difference in this world. In the coming week, may you do at least one thing to support the broken, to welcome the stranger, to celebrate what is worthy, to do the work of justice and love. Be strong, be connected. Each day, act so you may be a little more whole.